Hello and welcome to Gardener's World at Gardener's World Live.
Now, this is our show, and doesn't it feel good to be back in Birmingham?
It is wonderful. And I was trying to think what makes this show special, because it isn't like any other show, is it?
Yeah, there's something about the atmosphere here. It is very friendly. Everyone coming up and saying hello, which I love.
I was sort of trying to work it out, and whilst all the other shows are marvellous in their own way, they to me feel like performances, and when we go along, we go as spectators. When people come here, you come as participants. Everybody makes this happen.
Yes.
And I think that is the difference.
That's true. It's collaborative, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, goodness knows, there's enough to see here. It's you know, there are loads of gardens and beautiful plants.
Have you been in the floral marquee?
Not yet.
Oh, it's wonderful. Absolutely filled with beautiful plants. And of course, this is a shopping show.
And of course, you will have been shopping.
I may have already been shopping, yes.
Well, I think if you can, you should come along. And if you can't, sit back and we will bring the show to you over the next hour. On tonight's programme, we join Frances in the midst of building her very first show garden, which is here at Gardener's World Live, and see the landscape that has inspired it.
These canals are green veins that bring life right into the centre of the city, and it's that combination that I want to recreate for the garden.
Penstemon will improve any garden, and we travel to Worcestershire to visit a nursery who are preparing their Penstemon collection for the show.
Everyone should have at least one penstemon in their garden. They are absolutely stunning. The flower, you can go from tiny little flowers to great big blousy ones, different heights, and they are perennial, and they're just amazing.
And we meet a gardener whose journey into horticulture has transformed his life.
Once I got started, I literally I couldn't get enough of it. Cut flowers to herbal tea, I absolutely love it.
Rachel, you and I were in here very early.
We were.
And it's rather marvellous, because obviously we have the place to ourselves for a while. But it's also a bit odd, because you have everything set and everything is perfect and immaculate, but no visitors. Suddenly, look around and it's masses of people.
Yes, it starts bubbling away and then it comes to the boil magnificently. And Adam and Arit have been out amongst the crowds, just taking a closer look at what's on offer, and they've started with the small but perfectly formed, beautiful borders.
First thing I love to do when I get to this show is run all the way up this hill. I love the view back down and the wheelbarrows, and you're going back down to the busy bit. But this, quiet moment, but also it's where a lot of the designers cut their teeth, and eventually they might end up back down there on the show gardens.
Look at the love and energy that you can get into such a small space. I mean, I love this. Actually, you normally sort of see really high coloured impact borders, but this, with the muted tones, the really soft palette, this is all about moths.
Is it?
Yeah. This is about attracting moths, you know, so you've got scented flowers through here, sweet rocket, the nicotiana, and I like the fact of, we often think about the bees, but this is bringing our attention to that nighttime magic that's going on, you know.
And, you could imagine that just weaving through your garden or something, couldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely love it. I mean, what have you got here?
This is ultimately a plant physic garden, but it's worked with poetry, so talking about the power of plants, but the power of the spoken word. I really love that blend, but I'm quite into my sort of slightly unusual edibles as well. So you've got things like the daylily, which is lovely on top of a salad. I let the angelicas just seed around the garden. I even like the labels.
They are cute.
They are, aren't
they? They are really cute.
Go on, you choose where we're going next.
Floor marquee, come on, let's go.
This is a plant that I absolutely love. Baptisia, and there's loads more varieties now. And I think this is beautiful. It makes a really good sort of central plant to build the rest of the scheme off. And the flowers are lovely.
Yeah.
Good seed pod, but you can tuck them off and then it becomes a really good shrub for the rest of the season.
Well, it would become a really good shrub if you could get to grow it.
Oh, right.
Because I put it in a garden and it just didn't get going.
They can look a little bit straggly
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
first, but so I've sort of grown them on to a root board, you know, like that, sort of across, and then put lots of organic matter in and really got them going. But you know what I love? Look at the way it's repeated along there.
So you've got chocolate chip there.
And that is
I think this is pink truffles.
pink truffles.
Yeah, yeah.
So slightly different colouring flower, same foliage.
No, it's gorgeous. I mean, and I have to say, I love that glaucous
It's
kind
great.
of, yeah, that leaf's good. So now I just need to know I've got to get them in bigger.
Bigger, grow 'em bigger, organic matter, you'll be away. You can take one home.
Always learning with you, Mr. Frost.
Come on.
Breathe in.
I'll be really honest.
Go on.
I feel like I walked into a department store, you know, when the perfume hits you in the face. They're lovely to look at, but on top of that, I just find it quite heady.
They are heady. I'm not going to lie, but I want you to smell this one. This is Lilium Nymph.
Right.
Okay.
Actually, it smells a little bit more like quite a nice hand cream. It smells quite mellow.
Yeah. It's not at all got those heady notes, and I just thought that might just be one that you might want to give a whirl. Mrs. Frost might
I
like
think
that.
she might well.
So where is this going to be going? Have you got a border in mind, or?
My garden's a bit full, but I shall find room for it somewhere.
Does she do this all the time? Your
She
good
does,
partner?
yeah. On the bright side, if you didn't have all them plants, it might be you that's weeding.
Yeah, probably.
Really?
Right, on that note, enjoy your plants.
Thank you.
And of course, it wouldn't be a show without show gardens.
It certainly wouldn't. This is quite lovely because it just stops you.
Well, this is the Nurture Through Nature garden, you see.
Ah,
So
right.
you've clearly tuned into that straight away.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
And I quite like the use of materials, and then the bleached hedging just gives you that bit of privacy.
Yeah, it does. And of course, because you've got the clear stems, the
Yeah.
border then is massively on show, isn't it?
Even the colouring with a formium. Yeah, there's a simplicity about it, isn't it?
It is, the colour palette's muted, that's that carrying on that calm feel as well. This garden has been designed to think about every space, which is why I need to take you further round. Because
right. Go on.
there is always more. You see? Look at that. Living wall.
I know, and it is stunning. I mean, when you look closely, they're just pockets, aren't they?
Yeah.
So you could change the plants to suit the conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love the idea of that, if you've got a sunny spot. Imagine that being full of herbs.
Yeah. Talking about herbs, I'm creating my new veggie garden.
Right, yes.
I've got to show you something. Come on.
Okay,
come on.
okay.
Honestly, you wait till you see this. Look at that. But also, look at this. Do you know what that is?
Go on.
Envy.
That's the face of envy. Look at this. How? How?
Look at the size of the kohlrabi.
It's ridiculous.
It is, isn't it? I mean, my kale at home, they're about this big, yeah? My cabbages, I haven't even put in the ground at the moment.
And I think you need a bit more experience.
I do. Do you know what? I actually call veg gardening my hobby because I could never get to that level. So if I say hobby, it's all right, isn't it?
I'm still growing. I've still got seed level. I'm baby in comparison.
But
so
that's mind blowing, isn't it?
absolutely genius.
Awesome.
Love it.
Cool.
Love it.
This is the Memories of Mountains garden designed by Jonathan King, and it has the most lovely, cool, lush feeling to it. There's a brilliant mix of foliage texture that runs all the way through the garden, and that's fantastically defined by a mix of burgundy foliage and flowers that really makes everything else sing. There's a real star shrub for me in here. This is Nandina domestica. It's great for a small garden and it's constantly doing something. It's either in flower or in berry, and despite the fact that it's evergreen, it even takes on brilliant autumn colour. Now, at this year's show, there's a real range of gardens, from vegetable growing all the way through to the glamour of a natural swimming pond. And our own Frances has even created a show garden. And like so many gardens this year, it's a little bit different and personal. And we caught up with Frances as she started preparing for the show.
It's less than 2 weeks to go before Gardeners World Live, and I have a mixed feeling of excitement and also pure terror. But I'm just on my way to Birmingham with a van full of plants to start planting my very first show garden. But before I get there, I want to give you an idea of the inspiration behind my garden. The garden that I want to build is possibly something a little bit different. It's a fantasy imagined landscape. I want to set the whole thing on a really industrial backdrop. The idea is using old reclaimed materials from this beautiful heritage that we have all around us, and all against this essentially kitchen garden filled with edibles and useful plants, and also a haven for wildlife. It's a way of reimagining our urban spaces that so badly need it and turning them into something that's great for us and great for all the creatures that share these spaces with us, even against the odds. In every city, there are little pieces of industry that have been abandoned and nature's been allowed to stake its claim. And look at this, it shows the industrial heritage of this space. And they're beautiful, calming places, not just for people, but also for all the other life that visits. These canals are green veins that bring life right into the centre of the city. And it's that combination that I want to recreate for the garden. I love all this graffiti and the little old brick archways. I love the way all this valerian and buddleia is all growing through the brickwork. So cool. This chimney is exactly the kind of inspiring thing I've been looking at. It's imposing and it's huge and it's almost a little bit menacing, that kind of architecture towering above you. But with the softening of the planting both under it and also the buddleia that's growing out of the top of it, it's really, well, softened. That's the design bit, but also it's a little bit funny. If you look at it, it almost looks like it's wearing a wig. That brings in that humour and that humanity to the space that I so badly want. And actually, just standing here, I can see all along the canal's edge is this is St John's wort, I think. The way to tell if it's true St John's wort, Hypericum perforatum, is if you hold the leaves up to the sun and see tiny holes in them, perforations, and that is that one. That's the medicinal one, so you can use it as a muscular rub to help with aches and pains. And there's going to be loads of this in the garden, so it's lovely seeing it colonising the canal here. There's plants that are regenerating along the bank here, the umbels and the irises. It's so beautiful, and in turn brings in insects, wildlife and birds. Look at these little geese, a bit grumpy. Come on, Roo, let's step back. But it's just amazing. And that regeneration of urban space is something I find incredibly hopeful and joyful. And it's that feeling, that hope, that I want to bring to the garden. So fingers crossed. Come on, Roo. Away from the tranquility of the city's canals, I'm travelling a few miles down the road to the hive of activity at Gardeners World Live. Here we are. This is the garden. its bare bones are coming together, that industrial structure. So this greenhouse, which is, as you can see, not pristine. It's made out of entirely reclaimed material, as is pretty much everything in the garden. So this is some old roof timbers, there's windows that we've all been collecting from friends or nearby people who are selling old sash windows. And I think it looks really cool. It's going to be filled with edibles. In fact, pretty much the whole garden is going to be filled with things that are either useful to us or to wildlife. That's that kind of big, monolithic industrial space. It's a bit of a ruin, but it's also really cool with the corrugated tin on the outside, and again, old timbers. And people, when they're coming around this space, because they'll be able to walk through this garden, will be able to look in here and see it as a working shed. Just a slightly kooky, very tall one. This apple tree is here with the steps so that you could stand up there and harvest all the fruit when it matures. And all the hedging and all the trees are native. So there's hazels, there's aspens, alders. And then to maximise biodiversity, we are putting in water as well. So all these old sinks are going to be sunk into the ground, and it's going to be one big wildlife pool with wildflower meadow and lawn next to it. But you can see there's a lot of plant areas. There's masses of plants to go in here, which is probably what I should get on with doing now. In order to try and reduce our road miles, they've all been sourced for heat-free grown from where we live, obviously, as well as choosing species that benefit the wildlife as much as possible. This front edge is the sunniest part of the garden, so it's going to be filled with plants that like being in the sun, and that includes lots of aromatic, herby type plants. And one of my favourite plants is this fennel, and I wouldn't make a garden without it. But in terms of the ethos of this garden, it's edible, it's medicinal, but also it's really, really good for pollinators, particularly hoverflies. It's also a very resilient plant, so it's exactly right for this kind of post-industrial setting. And that's basically what this garden is. It's a really personal garden to me, filling it with all kinds of useful plants. But it's the first time I've ever done something like this. I'm a bit nervous, but I'm also really excited just to share with people the kinds of plants and the kinds of gardens that I love. So hopefully it'll be good. But it won't be good if I don't get them planted, so I should probably crack on and do that.
Frances, the planting, you made it. I did it. You did it, you did it. And not only did you do it, you've done it fantastically. It looks absolutely brilliant. Please tell me you've lost some of those nerves that you had.
Yeah, before it all started, I was like not really sleeping very well and kept thinking, oh no, I'm going to do a show garden, and then waking up and that was real. But now it's done, I'm just really pleased with it.
You should be. I just want to get in there.
Okay,
Yeah?
Follow me.
Right, good. Everywhere I look, there is just details that are just shouting out at me. I mean, look at this. Your upturned cement mixer.
That was my sister's. She's been trying to palm that off on me for years. And then we found this really scrappy rosemary, which we obviously had to buy. It's called Scrappy, Old Scrappy. And that had to just go in there, you know? It's part of the story.
Even here on the fig, you know, you've got your weeds, because weeds are in gardens.
Totally. I mean, that was really important to me, was just to make it feel like a real space.
Yeah.
That you would really garden, and the real problems that gardeners face, and making them, maybe not problems, but making them be celebrated. Here it is. This greenhouse is somewhere I want to be. I spent a whole day in here setting it and potting things up and planting up. I loved it. Have you seen my loofah?
Oh my gosh, has Monty seen that?
I don't know if he's seen it.
I don't know, he might have envy. This is a monolithic shed.
This is a shed. This is a two-storey extravaganza of a shed. I love it inside. It's got an upstairs and a downstairs.
I love the fact that the fox and cubs are going to come and self-seeded down here. That just looks really cool.
This is the ethos though. This is like, it looks almost like it's something growing up, but this is a kiwi. It's an actinidia, and there's another one there because you need two to cross-pollinate and get fruit. So it's like, it's all edibles,
Yes,
you know?
yeah.
That's what I love.
Over here, you know, the colour palette that you've got, they look fantastic against all of this rust and browns within the garden. So, you know, the palette has been considered, hasn't it?
Yeah, and for me it was slightly pushing me out of my comfort zone because my natural colour is green. I just love things filled with texture and green. So thinking about accent colours like the Monarda and how that works against the rust.
And then this, I mean, inspired Frances, I love that.
In my head, it was all going to be on a level, but then when we laid them out and they were all different heights, it just looked so much more interesting. I love this, and having water is so important for biodiversity, so that was really crucial to me that we featured ponds as well.
Now, this is a fabulous garden full of plants. Is it going to go to somewhere else after the show?
Yes, it's going to a food bank charity in Coventry where all these edibles can be grown.
You so deserve the platinum and best in show. This is your first garden and you smashed it.
I'm so proud. I'm so overwhelmed, I have to say, actually.
Be proud and get yourself a well-deserved drink.
I will.
Can't stay away from the floral marquee because there's always something new to discover. And here on the Hillview Hardy Plants display, there's a real cracker. I've spotted this. It's an Ixia called Eos. Wonderful sort of peachy, very subtle colours. Now they're members of the iris family. They like it hot and dry, so you need really good drainage in the soil. But then it's just wonderful. They grow from corms, and this foliage dies down while they're in flower, and then the foliage comes back again in about September and lasts through the winter. I think they're really something extra special. And at Gardeners World Live, there are some exceptional plants, and we went to visit Green Jam Nursery to look at their penstemons as they were preparing for the show.
Everyone should have at least one penstemon in their garden. They are absolutely stunning. The flower, you can go from tiny little flowers to great big blousy ones, different heights, and they are perennial, and they're just amazing. My name's Julia Mitchell, and I grow over 250 different varieties of penstemon. Quite a few of the pension ones are starting, so Just Jane, lots of bud, good old Firebird and Garnet starting to show flower now. And obviously lots of the little species which always start earlier than the big hybrid varieties. Sort of started in 1992. I was a student at Pershore College in my final year, and a friend and I got together. We spoke to the head of horticulture at the college, and he said, well, we're trying to get a national penstemon collection together. Why don't you get involved in that and do a stand at Malvern? And so that's how I got introduced to them. And then as soon as they started flowering, realised how beautiful they were. They look really delicate, they're not. And then in 2008, when we started the nursery, we started helping at Pershore College with their national collection, and that's how the sort of love was born, and it became a massive specialism for us here. So this is a brilliant example of a penstemon species. This is Penstemon calicosus. It's part of the Plantagenaceae family. Foxgloves are in the same family, and snapdragons, the antirrhinums. So they have an opposite pair of leaves and flowers that open up on the stem. Now, penstemon are actually named penstemon because they have 5 stamens from the Greek for 5, which is pent. So they are just absolutely beautiful. So I also love these pinifolius type, another different type of species, really low growing, 4 to 6 inches, beautiful little red flowers on this one. They have this needle-like foliage, and all of these will turn into flower spikes, so they're absolutely amazing. And I can't wait to see how this one turns out. It's got a very interesting name. Oh, I'm just not sure how to pronounce it. Obviously it's Latin, so you should pronounce it how it's seen. So it's Whippleanus, 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 Whippleanus. No idea. Penstemon are really easy to grow once they're in the garden. We have a very simple do's and don'ts that we recommend for people. The most important thing with penstemon, well, there's two fundamental things. Don't plant them in heavy wet soil. If you do have heavy wet soil, then you can improve it by adding organic matter or some grit. The other thing, really important, is don't cut them back until spring. Wait until the new shoots are 3 to 4 inches long, which is generally April or May. The reason that you don't cut them back until spring is because it gives the roots something to do in winter. So penstemon are fully hardy. All of the hybrids that we've got, we've had down to -12. So it's not the temperature that kills them, it's the cold and the wet. So if you cut the top of the plant off, you're just leaving the roots to rot in the soil when you get into the winter. So leaving that structure, it helps protect the crown, it gives the roots something to do, they're still taking water up, and you're pretty much guaranteed to be able to overwinter them if you don't cut them back until spring. So at the nursery, we keep all of our penstemon in pots for two reasons, really. One is for stock, and also, obviously, we use them for shows and we use them as show plants. However, they are much happier if they're actually in the ground. And they don't like to be too crowded when they're in a border. So most penstemon will grow to about a foot and a half in width, so give them some space. Don't cram them into a little hole surrounded by other things, and just allow the top of the plant to grow and allow the sunlight to be able to get to where the blooms are going to be at the top of the plant as well. There's such a range of colours in penstemon, you can pretty much mix them with any other colour in the garden, as long as they're in the sun. I mean, one little thing that we were just thinking about maybe for the show is Mexican fleabane. It's an erigeron, but the stem on this and the flowers as they're going over, I mean, perfectly matches the Anderkanan Friedrich Hahn, also known as garnet. And just, you know, if you put that around the base of that plant, contrasting foliage, you've got a bit of reddening in this foliage as well, and it just picks up the tones of that colour perfectly. I mean, another one that I like to combine is I like to combine actually silver foliage, which we use quite a lot on our displays, with really dark flowered penstemon. So this one's blackbird, but there's lots of other beautiful deep flowered penstemon that combine really well with the silver. Grasses look fantastic with penstemon. You can use them all summer. Obviously, you've got flower on them in the autumn, and we also use trees in our displays. Firstly, maybe because they've got contrasting foliage, it may be that we use Elaeagnus quicksilver, and that looks beautiful with the penstemon. But also, you want a bit of height on the stand at Gardeners World Live. Well, we're just making our final decisions at the moment on the whole sort of structure and layout of the stand. What we're going to put on in terms of plants won't actually be decided until a couple of days before. We're slightly in the lap of the gods and the weather as to what exact varieties we're going to put on. But we're just pulling everything out at the moment that we think might possibly go on. My husband, Adam, was actually my hairdresser originally. I asked him out for a drink many years ago, and now he's turned to a different side and now does horticulture and helps me out at the shows. I'm convinced he only married me because he doesn't have to dye my hair, because I'm a natural blonde and he hates dyeing hair. Loves cutting it, though. Don't make me all fluffy. Stop it, they better not. His attention to detail is immaculate. So last year, Adam was sort of following behind me on the stands, doing all the meticulous, making sure that every leaf was perfect, making sure you couldn't see any pots and the moss was all done perfectly. So he's been really helpful. Cornice hiding. We had a half shed made a few years ago that we use on exhibits, because inside that we can actually show penstemon seedlings, penstemon cuttings, and the different stages of growth of them.
I could stand in it like this, couldn't I?
Well, you can't be the glass.
No, but I could stand in it.
Yeah, you can, but you've got to be back here watering.
Oh, yeah.
We're just having a debate as well how we're going to do the path and how the whole garden's going to go. So I think one side is going to be quite big and blousy and punchy and full of colour, and the other side of the path might be a little bit more subtle and include a lot more of the species in there, just to show the contrast between the two, really. You want to do something that the public are going to look at and think, oh, I'd like to try that together in my garden, or, oh, that's beautiful, I just want a little snippet of that. We did get gold at Gardeners World Live last year, which was absolutely fantastic, really, really chuffed. However, there is actually a platinum award available at Gardeners World Live. So this year, we would like to up our game that tiny little bit and get platinum.
Julia, your stand looks absolutely fantastic. You've made it and you've got a gold.
Thank you, we're really pleased.
I love the way you've approached the stand. It's nice to see that mix compared to so many sort of single species displays. You've really mixed it up with other herbaceous plants. I think it gives people so many different ideas.
Thank you, and it's nice to bring out the colour of the penstemon using the perennials to make them pop.
Exactly,
Make
exactly.
penstemon pop.
And I guess that's how people will use them in their gardens as well.
Yeah, we try to make it look natural and how you would do a garden.
Now you've got a few new interesting forms here this year, and this is one of them, right?
Yeah, it's not new to the world, but it's new to us, and it's called Margarita Bock, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's got tinges of sort of pink, purple, blue, and it's just lovely.
I think it's fantastic. I mean, it's truly multi-tonal. I can see about 5 different colours just in that single flower. And it's a shorter plant?
Yeah, they get to about a foot, maybe 18 inches. These are a bit shorter because it's early season. So as we go through the season, they will get a little bit taller. And it's earlier flowering than some of the other red and pink varieties as well.
Brilliant. And is this something that people could use at home and grow in a container like this?
Yes, quite happy in a container. Just make sure you've got drainage in the winter. Don't leave it sat wet in the winter.
Fantastic. Well done. It's a brilliant display and the show garden is great.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Just spotted this penstemon and it's one of my absolute favourites. It's called Hidcup Pink. And I love that sort of muted pink tone with almost lime at the base of the flower. And this penstemon, like the rest of the group, a brilliant value in the garden. They start flowering about midsummer and they'll go all the way through to autumn. They come in a huge range of colours. And I particularly love this mix of Hidcup Pink with this lime in front from the Alchemilla mollis. The other fantastic thing about penstemons is they're incredibly easy to propagate. So if you head out early morning to your plants and select a non-flowering stem, around about 10 centimetres long or so, you strip off those basal leaves and then push them down the side of a 12 centimetre pot into which you've used a non-peat based compost, and then just put it into a humid environment and they will root away in no time. So just by buying a single plant, you can quickly propagate it up and run it all the way through your garden.
This is a very busy show with masses to inform and inspire you. And still to come, we have Adam looking at some of the simpler ideas on display here that can have a big impact in your garden.
Whether you've got a weekend, an afternoon, or even a couple of hours, I'm sure I can find you something to do.
We meet a young gardener who's been making a big impression on the flower show scene, but who particularly loves Gardeners World Live because it's his local show.
It's always something that, you know, you can look around and it's something that if I've never seen it before, I'm really interested in. I always want to ask a lot of questions.
And Nick will be looking at some of those plants that you can keep as part of your garden for a lifetime.
I'm talking about the likes of shrubs, perennials and climbers. And I'm off to find a few.
One of the things that I really love about Gardeners World Live is that here in the Four Marquee, you have such a wide range and selection of plants. Now, as well as finding that enormously inspiring and educative, of course, if you can see it, you can buy it and you can take it home. And I've selected just a few that I think are really special. Now this is Jeff's fuchsias, and it challenges every idea of what a fuchsia might or even should be in your mind if you're used to the normal voluptuous pink and magenta and purple flowers. I need my glasses for most of these because as you start to look in, you see these flowers which are just tiny, tiny little diamond-like jewels, but completely fuchsia-like. So, for example, you have Brian Breary here, which has wonderful copper stems, which you can cut back and will grow, actually, Jeff tells me, quite vigorously, grow to about 4 foot tall. And what is extraordinary about this one, this is a species fuchsia, procumbens. It has blue pollen, and you can see a kind of blue haze over it. And then at the end here is a fuchsia that looks as though it's an intruder. Doesn't look like all the others. Great big leaves, almost lilac-type flowers, but this is a fuchsia, Fuchsia arborescens. The leaves don't look like a fuchsia's leaves. The flowers don't really look like a fuchsia's flowers, but it's wonderful, and I think I've got to have it. Now, salvias are one of our most popular plants, and varieties like hot lips or amistad are in millions of gardens. But to see a range portrayed like this, with all the different colours and subtleties and variations side by side, is not just beautiful, it's really useful. It's really helpful for us as gardeners. Now, Foster's Unusual and Exotic Plants is very aptly named. You have this extraordinary display of plants in shapes and forms that you couldn't conceive of. For example, this to me looks as though it belongs underwater in a coral bed, not growing above ground. But there's really hard information too. Take a very familiar garden plant. Now, if I was to tell you that this and this spiky affair with the flowers growing straight out of it, as well as this seeming bundle of sticks, were all euphorbias, you might be surprised. But of course the euphorbia family is huge, and our familiar gardens euphorbias are just one small part of it. Most of them are desert plants. And this echeveria, now I grow echeverias, but I've never seen anything as beautiful as that. And that is what is incredible about this show. You see plants that you didn't know about. And that expands your knowledge and your love of gardening.
Gardeners World Live is our show, and it's the perfect place to share a love of gardening and to get inspired. And for local lad Tom Leonard, this is his horticultural highlight. We caught up with him in his local allotment.
It all began when I was 21. I used to pass the allotments on the train on the way to work in Birmingham. I'd just gone through a breakup, and basically I just walked up to the allotment sites and was like, can I get an allotment? Like, how does this work? And I got a pair of gardening gloves and just started, really. I would definitely admit there was a lot of kind of angry digging and also possibly a little bit of like, I was watering the plants with my tears. But, you know, at the end of the day, like, it got me to where I am. Once I got started, I literally I couldn't get enough of it. I kind of started showing it on Instagram because I wanted to show people that I was somebody who'd never done gardening before, and I kind of found it interesting, and I thought other people might find it interesting too, because I'm not what the kind of stereotypical gardener looks like. I really wanted to influence people to get into horticulture as well. I mean, it can be so beneficial and so healing and just so amazing for your own mental well-being that it's something that I really feel like we need to kind of talk about. Gardening in general is a form of therapy, and I can speak from a personal experience from that. I mean, last year I lost both my uncle and my stepdad, which was quite a tough time. When I was kind of in the thick of it, and I was felt like I was surrounded by just death, really. I came here and I realised how much I was growing life. It really kind of helped me nurture myself back to being me. But on the flip side of that, there was something else I was working on. It allowed me to kind of be someone else for a while when I wasn't very good at being myself. And that's that I was practicing to become a drag queen. Because of the pandemic, we couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't start performing on stage. So I was like, why don't I use my gardening Instagram and my allotment as a backdrop for my drag, and just to post online and make people laugh and just show, you know, a drag queen in full glam at the garden centre. And it wasn't until I was posting a picture of me in the garden centre that things kind of changed a little bit. That's where Daisy, the drag queen gardener, was born. I rocked up to a flower show in full drag and people went mad for it. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. Especially today, I don't think anyone ever expected a kind of someone who's a gardener who's also a drag queen. People didn't know where to look, and yes, there are definitely people that give me a bit of a funny look, but if you've got a problem with a colourful drag queen, I don't think you should be at a colourful flower show, darling. It's all about adding sass to your grass and adding couture to your manure, you know? My mom, oh my God, she's so supportive. I mean, in the beginning, I think she was a bit intrigued, to say the least, about what I was doing, but as time has gone on, she is my biggest supporter.
Right. I was more surprised at the gardening than I was at Daisy. At first, I thought it would be a novelty, but he's just constantly, it's all about gardening and the bees, always the bees. Daisy is an amazing person. It's another side of Tom, and his personality just glows out, and people love him. I think it's absolutely amazing, you know, I couldn't be any prouder. And he's my rock, and he always has been. And we've always both been there for each other. But she does inherit my long legs.
Oh, I've always been an entertainer, darling, since the moment I was born, honestly. I think I came out doing jazz hands. I can't say that on Gardener's World, can I? Well, my neighbours have reacted in a really lovely way on the allotment, and they've all been quite accepting. I mean, there's been a few curious looks from some of the old boys. I think at one point someone thought I was part of the WI, and someone got told off because they said a member of the WI was on somebody else's allotment, but actually it was me in drag. But yeah, it's been quite a fun experience, to say the least.
My name's Lynn.
I'm Stacey and I'm the president of Henley WI. We run a community allotment project here in Henley, and that's where we met Tom. He also has a plot here.
We think Tom is great. He's very helpful to us, very knowledgeable. Obviously his legs are superb.
Just such an advocate for gardening, so positive, so keen to get others involved. And Daisy definitely brings that into gardening. You know, this is something for us all. And we look forward to Daisy starring at one of our meetings very soon.
Gardening has really taken over my life. I mean, from cut flowers to herbal tea, I absolutely love it. I hope that my drag kind of is able to speak to an audience who's scared to be themselves and kind of just thinks that they can be whoever they want to be and have no worries about it.
Tom, I just found your allotment absolutely inspiring to look at, but this is also your local garden show, isn't it?
I have been coming here for a few years now. It's actually one of my favourite places to come and to check out the plants and see what's new around, really.
So I brought you here to see this beautiful border. It's by Jordan Weston. It's called Pretty Wild, and it's got that lovely sense of wildness. But I know that you grow geums.
Yes, I just think they are gorgeous, and the bees love them. And what I love the most is they've kind of matched them with these vibrant kind of violets and purples. I think it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
And even the salvias, oh, and these, if you just rub the leaves,
yes,
oh, it just smells like blackcurrant.
Oh, it is. It's really blackcurranty, isn't it?
It's so pungent.
It's very intense. It's wonderful.
Beautiful.
In your allotment,
yes,
what sort of growing conditions have you got there?
It's pretty difficult. I mean, in the sense of we've got quite clay soil, but I'm working with that. So I'm adding things like organic matter. But is there anything else that I can do to improve that soil?
I think you're really doing the right thing, because then you're letting the worms sort of do the work and draw it down and improving the aeration in the soil. So you're already, I think, getting on top of it. You know, it's a slow process, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
It's a gradual, it's a learning curve.
Yeah. How are you using the space you've got?
50% of my allotment is for growing crops and, you know, things like strawberries and brassicas and all that wonderful stuff. The other 50% is more for flowers. It's very much an experiment, my kind of allotment, yeah.
But I think that's lovely. It's almost like a trial ground, but you get to just do different things all the time. And obviously you want to attract lots of pollinators into the garden because you're growing produce.
Yes, it's all about kind of learning how to match the crops with the flowers and how they can work together in good harmony as well.
I think we've got some really good inspiration here, haven't we? It's so beautiful. Should we go and dive into a few plants?
I think we shall. Let's go and have a look, right? This is just artwork, isn't it? Now, we have reached something quite interesting, haven't we?
Well, we were admiring the other salvias. Really lovely.
I actually already have this variety, Hot Lips. I love the name. That's exactly why I brought it. It's a fabulous name for a plant. I was a bit worried putting it into my allotment with the clay soil, but full sun, and we're working on the drainage. It's doing really well.
This is very nice, isn't it?
It's just glorious, very tranquil.
So beautiful. It's called the Practically Plastic-Free Garden, designed by Pip Probert. Whew.
What a tongue twister, yeah.
Completely. Where are you on yellow? Because it can be a very divisive colour for gardeners, but it's beautiful here, isn't it?
I actually really like it. I mean, why not add such a vibrant yellow into your growing space?
I love it also in the Haconocloa grass, because then you've got the sort of in the foliage, doesn't have to be in the flower.
Yes, and I think that's where the designer Pip has really kind of made this garden sing.
So where do you see yourself a few years from now? Are we going to see you designing a garden at Gardeners World Live? It's got to be done.
Absolutely,
surely.
yes. Wouldn't it just be fabulous to be the first drag queen at Gardeners World Live, designing a garden?
I think it's high time.
Coming to a show like this allows you to get hold of some of those real investment species that are going to last for years and years in your garden. I'm talking about the likes of shrubs, perennials and climbers, and I'm off to find a few. And this perennial astrantia is a really good example. It's a form called Burgundy Manna, and it's a really long-lived garden plant. And it has the cutest common name. It's called Hattie's pincushion. It's also incredibly long flowering, so it can have flushes throughout the summer. Now, this is just one of numerous cultivars. There are white forms, pinks, and a whole range of these beautiful burgundies. Something that makes them particularly useful is that the flower isn't just the blooms that you immediately see, it's also the bracts that sit in a ruff behind them, and that gives it a fantastic backing of colour. It's happy in full sun or in dappled shade, and it can grow very happily around the edge of shrubs. In terms of propagating, the best way to do it is to split, and then you can slowly spread it across the garden and send this lovely colour across all of your borders. Just spotted this fantastic Clematis Sea Breeze. And this is a particularly brilliant Viticella form of Clematis that'll survive in sort of 30 plus years in your garden. It's also very long flowered. So from midsummer all the way through into autumn, it'll keep blooming for you. What makes it slightly unusual is it's a great socialiser. You can see here it's growing kind of mixed up with Jasminum officinale, or you can actually grow it over the top of a shrub. And of all the pruning you'll ever do in the garden, this is about the easiest. In about February time, you just need to chop it down to around about 12 inches or 30 centimetres from the ground, and it will emerge again from that. It just needs some early tying in. So easy maintenance and care, and beautiful lavender colour. What more could you want from a Clematis? Paul, you've been growing fantastic hydrangeas at Cook's Garden Centre for years. And I always think of them as one of the sort of real long-term garden plants. But actually, when it comes to flowering, they can run for months and months, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, with these new varieties that we've got, particularly the Magical series and the series we've got here today, the Rembrandt series, what we've got is a transition of flower colour as well, Nick. They start off with Rembrandt Verde there, which is completely green, that will go pink, and it will go white and pink. And here we've got hydrangea Rembrandt Rosso Glory, which starts green, turns into shades of red, and goes really vibrant red. And so you've got flower colour up to 4 months or more, which is incredible.
And of course, beyond their performance in the garden, they can make brilliant cut flowers as well, right?
Certainly the macrophyllias or the mop-heads make great cut flowers. A couple of tips on that: select your flower or bloom, trim it to about 30 to 40 centimetres. Always make sure you cut above a leaf node. Once you've cut it and taken it away, make sure you recut the stem at a very sharp angle. And then it doesn't hurt to actually dip that into some warm or boiling water for 2 to 3 minutes, and then into your cool water, and it will last for weeks.
And of course, that's not the end of their life. They can be extended even further because they can work brilliantly as dried flowers as well.
Oh, definitely. Here's a little tip. Once you get to like late August time, touch your flower head, and if it rustles, it's ready to be harvested. And strange enough, even though you're going to dry it, put it into a vase of water. When all the water's gone into the flower, then hang it and dry it, and they'll last for ages.
Brilliant, thank you.
You're more than welcome.
One of the things that I love about this show is the amount of ideas you can take home and use in your own garden. Whether you've got a weekend, an afternoon, or even a couple of hours, I'm sure I can find you something to do. We are in Francis's garden and it is an absolute delight. But look at that. Stunning, isn't it? It just stopped me in my tracks. We talk about bug hotels. There's 2 of these and they're more like palaces. And you wouldn't think necessarily you could create that over a weekend, but I think you could. You might have an old shelving unit in the back of the garage you don't use anymore. Bring it out, put it against the wall or snug it into a hedge. Then take the kids or take the dog out for a walk and start collecting the old seed pods, snail shells. That starts the memory and the conversation. You bring it home and you have fun. After that, look, habitat for a huge array of insects. They provide food for the birds. So why not have a go? It's Saturday afternoon. You've promised to do something useful in the garden. Why not make yourself a compost bin? I'm here on the Garden Organic Garden. It's full of wonderful, inspiring ideas. And that's what this is. You don't need a lot of space. This proves it. But I love the process of it breaking down it might take me a couple of years to get to that place where I've created wonderful organic fibrous matter that I can use in the garden. Do you know, the inspirational thing here, it's made of old pallets, but the clever thing, it's been divided. So this can be breaking down, and that is ready to use. The moment that's gone, you start the process again. Simple, but clever. And that's your Saturday afternoon sorted. Come down to Grundy's farm. Yes, this is inspired by the Archers, and I've always fancied having a pint with Eddie. And this garden itself, it's a little bit scrubby around the edges. I mean that in the nicest possible way. But what it started me thinking is, how about gain yourself a couple of hours? Don't cut your grass. What they've done here is they've taken turf and then planted wildflower into it, which is a great idea, and it can give you a superb summer display. If you were going to do that though, is first of all just check out your soil and then look regionally as to what wildflower grows happily in your area. And then if that really gets under your skin and you enjoy that summer display, in the autumn you could sow some fresh yellow rattle seed. That will start to root, weaken the grasses, which means your wildflower can really get its feet in. Plus you could add a bit more next year. So there you go. If you gain that couple of hours, what you must do more than anything is take a moment in your garden and make sure you enjoy it. So cheers.
Well, you are looking very comfortable, I must say.
Well, I'm feeling quite comfortable. I'm poised slightly on one cheek, but just taking a little breather because there's so much to see here. It's been busy.
It has been really busy. A lot to take in one day, definitely.
But I have to say, I would have come just to see Francis's garden because that is the one thing that's given me most pleasure. We didn't know what we were going to find, and it's superb. It's stunning.
It's so wonderful, and what I love is that you really see Francis in that garden. She's put herself into it. It's a labour of love. Just wonderful.
And it represents an energy that you get at this show, and I think is coming through horticulture generally, a younger generation coming through, lots of ideas, lots of skills, but also a commitment to a kind of nurturing of the environment, of ecology, of every aspect that gardening can encompass, that I find refreshing and invigorating.
Yeah, I think that's so true. It's something you're really picking up from everybody. You know, all gardeners now want to be part of that bigger thing, you know, sort of doing their bit. In fact, if you buy plants here at the show, there's a scheme where you can go and swap the plastic pot for a cardboard one, so you don't add to your plastic mountain back at home. I think it's a brilliant idea.
Common sense. I mean, I suspect you'll be going back to the floral marquee, won't you?
I might. I think there's time for one last visit.
Yeah, well, I'm afraid that we've run out of time here. But I will be back at Longmeadow as usual next week.
And if you can get here to the show, it's open tomorrow and Sunday. Do come along. There's so much to see. But from us, it's goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Gardening at Longmeadow, the BBC book, is available now. Driving on Mars, Professor Brian Cox at Mission Control, searching for life 200 million miles away. Extraordinary stuff next on BBC Two.